I'm going to take the end of scene 2 as one big bit, partly because it's quite hard to break up, and also because, and I shouldn't really say this, but it has come up before. So it may be unlikely to come up, but nonetheless, let's work through it, because the better we know the play and the way these bits link to the whole, the better position you're in, both for this and for section B. So we have a very uneasy atmosphere here. I say uneasy, perhaps I mean unstable, so that we have lurches from the camaraderie of Horatio and Marcellus to the news that they have. And I'm sure you can imagine it. It's the most understandable situation, that you've got something big you want to tell someone, someone's pleased to see you, you've got to get through the formalities, the small talk, the conative utterances, the use of you and checks up on health, all those filler phrases, before you can get to what really matters. That's a quite English language way of looking at it. And you'll see Hamlet for most of the time as what English language A-level students call the topic manager. But really the person with the plot breakthrough, the expository heft, is Horatio. So let's have a look. Hamlet begins by meeting his friend, re-meeting his friend. We've already met Horatio. There are all the camaraderies, the pleasantries exchanged. There is something slightly acerbic about Hamlet's tongue, particularly when he says, "But what if faith make you from Wittenberg? What are you doing here?" Horatio slightly duplicitously shrugs it off a truant disposition. "Good my lord, I'm just not showing up to school." Hamlet, who values the world of scholarship, gainsays this. "I would not hear your enemy say so. But what is your affair in Elsinore?" Now, Hamlet is asking what is technically called here repeated questions. Nothing too technical about that. But if you remember when he first meets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, it doesn't take him many questions, but he has to ask them repeatedly in order to rumble the fact that they are spying. Something similar happens here. "But what is your affair in Elsinore?" That might be quite a serious remark. "We'll teach you for to drink ere you depart." That blokish bants, back and forth, badinage. And Horatio says, with proper respect, "My lord, I came to see your father's funeral." Now, Hamlet, I prithee do not mock me, fellow student, does actually express doubt about this. The two events are inextricable in Hamlet's mind. And when people come to think about Hamlet and mortality, this is Hamlet's version of Claudius's remark about with mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage. "The funeral baked meats did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables." Hamlet, the failed poet, I say failed because Rhodri Lewis does, furnishes this little speech with alliteration. He's really relishing the sound of his own words here. But the two ideas are inextricable. And then my father, methinks I see my father. Now that is such a shunt in subject matter that we have one of those lurches from topic that has characterized the monologue we've just seen. Now, look at what happens here. My father, methinks I see my father. This language is taken as equivocal, as an equivocation by Horatio. Where, my lord? Horatio, bear in mind, Hamlet is the one who is about to go crazy, whether feigned or not, whether by craft he puts on this antic disposition. But Horatio is the one who least doubts that the father could actually be present. And that is because Horatio has actually seen him. Now, this might cause you to remember, or me to remind you of Stephen Greenblatt's account of how present purgatory was to an Elizabethan audience. But for the rest of this speech, we've got the same kind of world that you might remember us looking at in Act 1, Scene 1. This evocation, almost invocation, summoning up of the image of old Hamlet, the ghost. We always ban people in the fourth form from saying it puts a picture in the reader's mind. But notice what's called enargia when Horatio begins to describe the presence of Hamlet's ghost. Enargia meaning a kind of enactment of, a kind of summoning up of, for as if for our senses, the presence of the ghost. And here we go. 2 nights together had these gentlemen, Marcellus and Bernardo, on their watch in a dead waste in the middle of the night, being thus encountered a figure like your father. It's almost a simile there. There's a kind of caution there. Armed at point exactly, cap a pie, appears before them. And then there's a very tightly handled, lots of verbs, narrative, with a solemn march, goes slowly and stately by them. Note that use of the historic present to make it more vivid. And then, like an older kind of narrative, even like Latin, we go back almost indiscriminately into the past. Now, if you want to make something of that, and the easy, or almost too easy, or that porous line between the past and the present, here we are, back in the past. Thrice he walked by their oppressed and fear surprised eyes within his truncheon's length. While they distilled almost to a jelly in the act of fear, stand, and we're back in the present again, dumb and speak not of him. So you can see that juxtaposition of the tenses, the very vivid recounting of the event. Bear in mind that Marcellus is actually on stage, so Horatio is doing Marcellus' words. Perhaps Marcellus is too traumatized by what he's seen to speak it. Bear in mind as well, Horatio was the man who was called upon, and thou art a scholar, they told him. He was the man who was invited to address the ghost directly. And then whereas they had delivered both in time form of the thing, each word made true and good, the apparition comes. I knew your father. Very simple subject, verb, object. These hands are not more like. Now, we begin to notice the dialogue now breaking down. You could call it staccato. I'd urge you not to call it stichomythia. Very tempting to call things stichomythia when there's brisk dialogue. Stichomythia actually means de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum is matched by de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum. So de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum is matched by de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum. So stichomythia is the exact matching of a rhythm. Stichomythia literally means the telling of a story line by line. What we have is different from that. It's almost choric at moments. Choric because there is a same meter, but it's almost kind of replied, my lord from head to foot, then saw you not his face. But what it is, but that so barely happens that what it is, it's very chopped up, very rapid, I am, his hands and whatnot like. But where was this? Did you not speak to it? My lord, I did, and vanished from our sight. 'Tis very strange. We do, my lord. Ahmed, you say, Ahmed, my lord, from top to toe. And I've done little lines here. Where I've done a little line is where it's actually a broken up line of iambic pentameter. Did you not speak to it, my lord? I did. Or, and vanished from our sight. 'Tis very strange. And there, the conversation, though broken up, does follow in a seemly poetic way. By the time you get here, you've got Hamlet pretty much hyperventilating. We do, my lord. Ahmed, you say? Ahmed, my lord. From top to toe. Also, when it says all, how lame does it sound when you ask a whole class to say, Ahmed, my lord? They really can't do it all. They're just going to chip in with whatever 4 syllables occur to them. Now, we do start inching our way back into iambic pentameter when we are talking about matters of substance. Now look at this extraordinary phrase. For example, what looked he? Frowningly? Hamlet's really keen to know what his father is thinking and feeling. Hamlet, you'll notice, just like Horatio, has not a moment of doubt that this is a ghost. Even though later on he's going to say the devil can assume a pleasing shape, or may assume a pleasing shape, here he absolutely anticipates that if he goes out and looks at the battlements, he will meet his father. And look at this, a countenance more in sorrow than in anger. Now, you could almost argue that that is a good sign if you're in purgatory, a good sign that you're getting through the purgation process, you're serving your time, you are beginning to think about forgiveness, or you're beginning to become resigned to the way your life and deeds turned out. When we hear the ghost, old Hamlet, there is a sense of anger, of bitter resentment, murder most foul. And then we have this piece by piece eliciting of detailed information from Hamlet, this cross-examination. It is, by the way, cross-examination in drama, it's almost what you might call elenchus, meaning a kind of process by which truth is taken out, by which truth emerges. Pale or red, nay, very pale, and fix his eyes upon you most constantly. I would I had been there. So there you have that almost Greek Roman via Seneca tragedy way of gaining the truth with bizarre details. State it long, while one with moderate haste might tell 100. We're not looking at seconds, we're not looking at clocks, but we are saying you could count up to 100 and you wouldn't be in a hurry doing it. It stayed for quite a long time. Now, Hamlet, who previously has spoken a lot in questions, now says something declarative and in the future tense. I will watch tonight. He has made a decision based on the information he's gained, and he's gained quite a lot of information, notice, with lots of questions. Based on that, he has determined that he will as in ich will, I intend to, go to watch. Perchance will walk again, I warrant it will. And now we have the beginning of the plot, really. The beginning that we're set up for the encounter between Hamlet and his father that sets the whole plot going and adds that murder dimension to Hamlet's present misgivings. Note these piled up conditional phrases. If it assume my noble father's person, I'll speak to it. If you have hitherto concealed this sight, let it be tenable in your silence still. So lots is provisional, lots is conditional. It may not be my father, but if it is, I will go and speak to it. And if you haven't yet spoken about it, and it turns out they have not, then keep silent about it. Again, you have that hint of a court that watches everything, the Walsingham Polonius type presence of constant surveillance and espionage. And then we have the factual, actual plot-like setup of the encounter. So fare you well, upon the platform twixt 11 and 12, I'll visit you. All, again, that foreshadowing, that foreboding, that repeated use of the present tense. And then finally, again, as we had some lines ago, the scene is left to Hamlet. Farewell, my father's spirit in arms, all is not well. I doubt, as in suspect, some foul play. And then Hamlet can't wait. Till then, sit still, my soul. Now, note that Hamlet is using an imperative, and he's using it of himself, or of his individual self. He, again, is able to split his psyche, his person, up into bits. Body, soul, brain, and there it is. Let's just look at those last lines. Fond deeds will rise, though all the earth overwhelm them to men's eyes. Now, before we leave this scene, I'm aware that I've looked at it bish bash bosh chronologically, and that is perhaps not the way to do it. So if you're taking notes on this, let's look back. Let's try and identify what the common threads are. Now, that drawing of a T-shirt reminds us that appearance and reality are a massive theme here. And indeed, I suggest you could lead on that. If we go back to the way Hamlet probes Horatio about his purposes for being in Elsinore and not in Wittenberg, we have that clash of appearance and reality. Don't try and pretend to me that you are truant. Don't try and pretend to me that you are here solely for my father's funeral. And then Hamlet, rather ironically, is all about appearance when he wants to establish how, like his father, this ghost is. I mean, he's got nothing else to judge on. And they go on very visual details, including how long it takes for the apparition, and I mean that word apparition, to stay around. So Hamlet, who is very suspicious at first of appearance, then realizes he has nothing else to go on. He does question that appearance. He doesn't question it now before he sees the ghost. Afterwards, as I say, he wonders if the devil can assume a pleasing shape. And in order to verify the truth of that apparition, he actually stages the mousetrap to find some other way of ascertaining Claudius's guilt. But notice how Hamlet concludes the scene. Fond deeds will rise, though all the earth o'erwhelm them to men's eyes. What we learn then is, although appearance may conceal reality, what with Hamlet's questioning and what with the way fate works out, this lie cannot last.